And we're live. Let it loop. Let it loop.
Are you like live streaming this somewhere?
Yeah, it's on Twitch and on Twitter. So we want to retweet that.
Yeah.
I tagged you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the cave. It's your boy Joe Reezy. I'm here with Proper. But before we dive in and introduce our guest today, don't forget to swing by safelightcandle.com, our sponsors. And also make sure you check us out at cave.com. That's K4V3.com. And this isn't the first time. This isn't the second time. We meet once again, man. How you doing, brother? What's going on? Welcome back.
Sorry for being on so many times, bro. But it's good. It's good to be back. What's up with you guys? How you been since we last spoke? I know you've been going down some rabbit holes, some unpleasant ones.
Unpleasant to me too, just because they've been kind of shattering my belief system. But you know what happens? It's like the cave. We talked about Plato's cave. When you hear something and you're free, you come back and you're like, dog, there's a sun, there's trees out there. You sound crazy. You start to doubt yourself too. You know, you're like, man, am I crazy? But we'll get into that later, bro. Before we dive in, how are you, bro? I know I've tried to not jump into the rabbit hole right away on our podcast. So before we dive in, what kind of hobbies do you have outside of the deep end, brother? What's going on with you outside of the rabbit hole?
Hobbies. I haven't really been. I've been working a lot as of lately, and I do have a family, so I have like kids and a wife and everything. So whenever I'm not either working, I'm out with them doing stuff, you know, Disney World, just the kid stuff. And as far as hobbies, like I've been kind of busy with, you know, trying to grow the show and everything. So I haven't really had time other than like spending time with family outside of that. So I haven't really, and I'm antisocial, bro. Like I told you, I hate everyone equally. So I'm a hermit, dude. Like I'll stay home and just chill, watch documentaries, but like hobbies, I like to work with my hands. I like to design things. So I have a background in electronics engineering with a specialization in robotics. So, you know, sometimes I'll make stuff. Yeah, and like CAD cam stuff. Like I enjoy doing that. And yeah, just hanging out, man. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So I usually spend my time doing whatever I feel like, really, you know?
Hell yeah. While I'm making robots and shit, bro, or like trying to summon spirits to
Making
become like
homunculus.
oh, bro, we'll get into that later. And I know yeah, we'll get into that later. Do you like any sports, bro?
No, I hate sports. MMA. Like I'll watch MMA, but like boxing's dead to me nowadays. Like it's all like I don't know if you guys saw the Logan and what's the other guy's name?
Dylan Dennis.
Dylan Dennis, yeah.
Bro,
garbage.
Talk about a letdown. Like it got hyped up so much.
Yeah.
For nothing. Like I wanted it to be a real thing. I'm like, this is gonna get his teeth knocked in, and it was like the most flaccid fight ever. This dude, like the definition of a keyboard warrior to the T. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I MMA. I used to be real big into boxing, but then that died off. And is there any good boxers nowadays? Like,
I mean, Canelo's still boxing.
He's just killing everyone, though. You know, it's gotten to the point where, yeah. Well, he's kind of up there, but I thought Dylan Dennis won the fight, bro.
No, dude, no. What was this?
He got hella exposure. He didn't take any damage, you know, and he could say that I would have won if we went in a full MMA fight. So
if that was the goal, then I can see what you're saying, that he won in other ways. But as far as like I don't know, the dude really didn't perform. And what was the latest one that just happened this weekend? Wasn't it some MMA fighter also against Fury?
Yeah,
and it looks like they stole the fight from him.
Yeah, and Ngannou and Fury, which was pretty big in Abu Dhabi, where also relates to what we're talking about.
I would-
There was a robbery there too. It was, Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. People say from the MMA community that was finally the fight that shifted the respect towards MMA. So
Mhm. Well, I think they've had it for a while now. I enjoy, like I said, it's something about, and I don't know if it's like human nature, because if you really think about this, this is what they were doing during like Roman times, where they would put people in cages to fight with lions for entertainment. It's like, are you not
Fuck yeah.
entertained? It's like, this is what it goes down to, which is kind of like this barbaric, animalistic aspect of the human like being, where there's something like we all have that capability. Now it's if you want to tap into it or not. Like that's like I've always been fascinated with Mike Tyson and how supposedly he had been like hypnotized for a majority of his fights, according to what he was saying. What was the
hell
guy?
yeah,
Constantine? What?
Customato.
Yeah.
Customato. Yeah, I read a book on that. He told him that he was like the chosen one, that he was already destined to be the champion, and he was pretty much a prisoner to boxing, like a slave to boxing. You know what I mean?
I was on a
Program.
show where they called him a homunculus because he's like super strong, like, and he was kind of right. That's magic to me, like being able
We're getting
to.
started early.
I'm just saying, bro. Like, there's so many interesting aspects to the occult, and that to me is a sort of programming to be able to. How does that even? How are you able to get into somebody's head? Let's talk about like cult leaders and like cults, where you're able to say a string of words to somebody. You're able to say a string of words to a woman to get her to get with you. You know what I'm saying? Like to hook up with you. You're able to say a string of words. Like that's alchemy, taking all these words and putting it together in a sort of way where you can make somebody do something, whatever it is that you want. That's people who have that. I've never been a salesman, but people who have that way of being able to talk to people, to and that sounds bad, right? To manipulate people. But if you're able to make it in a way where they're still happy and content, and it's still a mutual consenting thing, right? And I'm not trying to get any weird like that, but as long as it's consenting, you're able to make them do whatever. And that's always been amazing to me, like this whole neurolinguistic programming and everything, and the whole Mike Tyson aspect, to where that dude was a freak of nature. He was a monster, and you could tell he was in the zone every time, going into like the press conferences and everything. He wouldn't talk smack, but then when the trainer died, you could see where he went right off the rails. So it's like, how much further would he have gotten if this dude would have been still alive, hypnotizing him and putting him in a trance for like the remainder of his entire career? Like he would have, because he's not all there. I mean, let's be honest. He's kind of.
He did the toad now. He's the DMT now and stuff.
He says mushroom saved his life now, doesn't? Is that what he said?
The toad.
Yeah, the 5-MeO, which
Yeah.
I mean, that the whole thing with the psychedelic experiences, like people, I've never done DMT before, but I've seen a pattern to where people go into these states, but it doesn't feel like they ever bring anything back of value. So it's like, I saw this crazy stuff. So what'd the elves tell you? Well, they were happy to see me. Okay. What else did they say? They were just hyped to see me, bro. It's like, okay, well, when you're able to extract like some information from that other realm that's usable in our realm, like, yo, they gave me the cure to XYZ. Like, that'd be wild. If the DMT elves were able to solve world hunger or world poverty or whatever it was. I mean, I believe some groups are in touch with outside forces, maybe not DMT elves, but something beyond the veil, if you know what I mean.
Right. Bro, personally, I went through some like personal shit, and I did DMT like chronically, bro. It was like over the top, too much, you know what I mean? And looking back now, I feel like I wouldn't have that courage to do it unless I was going through something, because it's kind of like a really intimidating roller coaster, you know what I mean? Like your stomach starts feeling a certain way, like, oh, do I want to do this? And you're in line. The closer you get, it's like, fuck, kind of want to back out. And it's not until the first drop, you know what I mean, that you commit and there's no backing out from there. But
Right.
the first 2 times I got a lot out of it because I was going through something. So I did have a why. I needed a set and a setting. I had my set and setting as far as my why goes. Well, I feel like my why outweighed the set and setting. So I was able to do it on my own and do it. And I got what I needed. I got closure for what I was going through. But bro, I kept doing it. And I actually had a trip where the DMT entities were like, the f are you doing here, bro? Like, we don't have nothing to show you anymore. You know what I mean? I was like, what the hell? Is this a relevant experience? Because they say DMT is a shared experience instead of one of those like personal trips and shit, right?
So it was like a load game. It picked up where you had left off before.
No, I shoot out and I feel like they know who you are. And I feel like obviously when you go somewhere, they have a story to tell you, but I feel like I was going there with no why anymore. You know what I mean? My why was already taken care of and I was just kind of lost in the realm. So they had no like signal to convey like this person is a person in need. It's just like, damn, strangers here. What the some kind of spiritual. I might be sounding crazy because it's a spiritual trip. It's a personal trip. But point is, I feel like if you go with no why, you're kind of lost and you just kind of blurt in or zapping into like their realm. And they're just like, what the fuck are you doing here? You might fall prey into the advanced entities that look for, people to possess and all that. But
and
crazy stuff.
I've been meaning to ask you, bro, for like ever now. Why the mask, dude? Like I've always wondered why you wear the mask. Are you,
bro? Okay, so there's this book I read or I'm reading called How to Change Your Future with Time Windows, and they talk about like the primitive people and how they really value their astral form and their self-image. They didn't have mirrors or anything back in the day, right? And it wasn't until the settlers came and they wanted to take pictures of them. Some of them were kind of just like, oh shit, they're taking pictures. But some of them thought taking pictures were trapping their astral kind of, form. So they couldn't use their real astral form to imagine different realities and stuff. You know what I mean? Diving into this stuff we're diving into, bro, sometimes you meet some people that actually practice this. And so I just don't want to, there's a lot of haters, bro. You know that. So I just don't want to have any magic
bro,
inadvertently sent to me. So it just, splatters and goes back type.
No,
You know what I mean?
you can't. I mean, and that's there's a way to go about that because you are essentially like people, and there's nothing wrong with this. Like I call it worshiping like miscellaneous gods, where they don't worship the God that I worship, right? The Christian God, if you will, Jesus Christ, right? The Trinity, whatever you want to call it. Like there are people who are pagans, which they worship paganism as nature, and you have a whole bunch of different religions. But point being is, as long as you're like respectful, I guess, and don't constantly bash people's stuff, because I don't like I with the whole Crowley stuff, even bashing him is bad enough, because you have people who kind of sort of they're Thelemites and they not that they worship him, but they hold him to like a high regard. And I shit on like I won't shit on any other religion except for like Crowley, and I'll constantly like even today. I got a few comments on a video I had put out about a video I had put out about a certain Thelemite, and this was months ago. But yeah, you're absolutely right. But I don't think that as long as you don't, because once you get into that state of mind of like, again, it goes back to that placebo. If you think like, oh, they're gonna put a spell on me, then automatically they're already winning. It's like it's a psychological thing, and sometimes I think that magic is a way of not maybe bringing change in real life, like this materiality, but convincing yourself of thinking a certain kind of way, therefore it's true. Like you're practicing magic with doing that mask thing of like preserving your image to try and reflect it, like not to get anything attached to you, like not make it a mirror type of thing. you're an occultist, bro. You're more of an occultist than I don't do anything like that. I have my
Occultism.
I have my real name here. I have my real face, and it's too late now. It's already gone. It's too far gone, so I can't really do anything about it. But I kind of wish I would have taken on like some occult double name, but I wasn't into this stuff heavily. Like when I first started, it took me like 50 episodes, like a year, to really find my niche. And then when I was in, it was like kind of already too far down the rabbit hole. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna ride it. And then it like kept growing bigger and bigger. And I'm just like, well, nothing I can really do now. I don't have anything to hide, but you know, sometimes I care about my family, like my kids and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't care what happens to me. Like,
I feel you. No, bro. It's funny because we have meetings for the whole group, and they're like, "Man, I can't be on these episodes where you talk about crazy because you guys are using my real name
guys are
and
secret
shit." You know what I
society
mean? Yeah. Seriously, like I have my face on there, so like I don't have a mask and shit, so it's like it just kind of validates to just kind of keep wearing it, and it just kind of pops out on social media like, "Oh, why is this guy wearing a mask?" They already put out. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I listened to your podcast with Trebles on Paranoia Radio, and you didn't like your name at first, right? And then you kind of made it a thing, and now you're the chosen Juan. So, mixing hate, cooking it up is alchemy. So
yeah,
you're giving me energy to kind of Kamehameha back to you if I want. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to him because that dude was super hype. He was like,
hell yeah, bro. He's
loved
tight
his
as fuck.
But yeah,
bro,
there's something about that, about taking that energy and transmuting it and using it, right? So when somebody makes a joke, turn it on
you get hurt by it
and use it in the show. Like, I'll take negative feedback or really constructive criticism, but at the end of the day, I talk about what I want to talk about. I don't really care what other people think, but I'll take that sort of stuff and turn it on its head. And then people, what else are they going to say? They're going to find something else. And then you take that and you just, it's kind of like a reverse psychology thing where you just make fun of everything. And that was one thing with my name. I always hated my name growing up. It's like the most basic Hispanic name that in the existence of ever. And I was like, what somebody the other day was like, why is it Juan on Juan? Are you that, they called me, are you that egotistical or something like that? I'm like, bro, I made that name like 4 years ago. And I didn't even know that you were going to be on my YouTube channel listening to me. Like, if I would have known. But it's catchy. It's a pun on my name, and it's unique, right? Nobody really there's a dude who made a podcast after mine called the Juan on One. And I know for a fact he was trying to take Juan on Juan, but when he looked me up, I beat him to the punch, bro.
What was it about? Was it about like your or what?
Honestly, let me look him up because I don't know. It's like some dude that
imagine it's like Spores. He looks you up and is like, what the f is this?
So shout out. I don't even know if he's like active anymore, but the Juan on One. I can't log in here. He talks about.
Is he Asian? Like WAN?
Playing games with tech. Who is this guy? Let me see. Let me see when the last episode was March 30th, 2022. He's talking about tokenomics. He's talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, shout out to this guy, but it's not active anymore. So,
bro, before we get off, shout out to you, bro. You're the first person who asked about the mask. So I always wondered personally, like, when is someone gonna ask about the mask? And no one has. So
maybe they weren't asking to not
the chosen Juan did. The chosen Juan did, bro.
Because like you're into it, bro.
It took 3 episodes, so it's like Star Wars, in the 3rd episode he asked, and boom.
It's like, bro, if you're gay, you're gay. You can't do nothing about it, man. If you like to wear a mask, you like to wear a mask, dude. It's all good, man. But I don't know, maybe people didn't ask because they didn't want to be rude or come off something. Maybe you have a medical condition. I don't know, bro. Like, but I was wondering, and I've been meaning to DM you about it. I was like, bro, why the mask? But I figured you already talked about it.
Plus, we had Paranoid American on the podcast.
Fuck that
So
guy. I'm just kidding. I love Thomas.
we talked about Marvel characters, and one of my favorite characters is Doom, and he kind of had the mask thing. So, and he was really into magic and occult. So I was like, it's perfect. So I'm just gonna keep riding with. Plus, you know what validated? Honestly, we had some crazy Discord members. I mean, I don't really want to, if they're listening, we had some Discord members come in and they said they put curses on a certain person, and I guess his health started declining. I don't want to name names. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep wearing this because I don't want that energy. You know what I mean?
Eh,
So
nothing is
you know what I'm talking
ever
about, Jermaine?
private
You know
on
what I'm
the
talking about,
internet.
Jermaine?
What?
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I know. I know what you're
okay.
talking about, but nothing's
right.
ever private on the internet. Once you're on
Yeah.
there, people can find you, so it don't matter to me.
Yeah.
If someone really wants to find out who you are, they will. You know?
I got that Glockachu ready, baby. So if you want to find out.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing about, right? I believe that you guys ever heard of the world sentient simulation? Where they
No.
No,
where
I don't think I have.
so they're running, and I'm gonna paraphrase it. They're actually running a simulation of everything in the world with tabloids, news, weather patterns, everything in this computer. I forget on which university. Again, I'm paraphrasing it. And essentially, what I believe happens because how you were saying, like, we all voluntarily give our information up, whether we want to or
Right.
not. We're going on all these platforms. Our phones are scanning our freaking fingerprint. They're recording us at all times, like whatever. Our houses are hooked up to the internet 100% of the time. They can like locate and map out your entire house with your Wi-Fi signal. Like so there's no more privacy. And what I believe is happening is, and I've been told from some insiders that it's like a virtual voodoo doll type of thing. So whatever happens to your little virtual homunculus inside of that world sentient simulation happens to you on the outside. And what I've heard is, to kind of tiptoe around and not get anything flagged, I've heard that certain companies that have to do with taking care of your health, they are able to predict when something's going to happen to you, and they call you up and go, hey, are you ready for your checkup? Because they've already done something in XYZ to trigger an effect, and they already know they can kind of sort of predict or manipulate something somewhere to make you have a real reaction in this real world. So it's like the Matrix, when he's getting his ass kicked in the Matrix, it's happening to his real body, even though it's happening in this other dimension, this other realm. So that's what I've heard from people who used to work in that field. They're like, yeah, when they hit you up to come in for your yearly checkup, they've already done something, right? And that's how they make their money. You have to keep coming back to them. You have to keep paying them to keep you healthy. So what a better way than, hey, let's do some technomancy on these people. Let's do some techno wizardry on these people, and let's affect them on, this astral realm, this other dimension, and hopefully, according to sympathetic magic, the law of contagion, what has come in contact stays in contact. Quantum entanglement, whatever. Two separate. They're far away, but they're still interacting with one another. Well, that's magic. It's just, it has a different name to it. And I mean, there's entire books written. I've done presentations on sympathetic magic and how that's able to affect people from a distance. So yeah, dude. I mean, it's called, I think that we're feeding with all this information that we're giving to these sites. They're feeding this little virtual voodoo doll in this world, and they're just making them more and more like you every single day. And now look, bro, you can clone your entire voice to make it sound just like you. You know what I mean? There's the whole deepfake stuff. Like, it's gotten scary accurate to where that uncanny valley is being destroyed, one step at a time. And to me, it was the show on Netflix. I don't know if I talked about it before, that Sex, Love, and Robots or something like that, where it's all animated.
Oh, yeah.
But when you first start watching, at least for me, I'm waiting for that movement that goes, oh, this is an animation. Because, there's always something that's going to give it away. Like, that's why I love stories of like Skinwalker or the Wendigo, or the Wetiko, whatever, where it's like they try to emulate the human form, but can't really emulate it. So they're trying to like lure you in, but there's something messed up about whatever form that they're trying to take. And it's like, that's what God has that man or anything else can't emulate. Like that soul aspect, that thing that really makes you human. And as a human, you can recognize when someone's off, right? Even in themselves, if they're going through like, demonic possession, or they're on drugs or something that alters their state of consciousness. You can tell when someone's not really there. And it's funny because I went to Disney the other day, dude. And it's crazy because my wife saw it too. But, and again, I don't like to talk about this because it's like you're demeaning a certain group of people, but like the whole NPC thing where some people are just here for texture. But some lady, she had a mask on, and she like walked up on me. It was an employee of Disney World. And she like walked up on me, bro. But it was like the weirdest interaction because you could tell she wasn't all there in her eyes. And she was like kind of looking at me in her eyes. But it was like one of those kind of like, and I'm like, I thought she was going to say something to me. So I'm waiting. And I look at my wife because she's right next to me. And then the lady just like walks away from me. And I looked at her and I go, did you see that? She's like, yeah. I was like, it was so bizarre, almost like if she wasn't. And then, of course, me being into the things that I'm into, I'm like, oh, probably encountered a homunculus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you didn't press square, bro. You didn't activate. That's funny. All right, let's get into it. But I mean, before we jump in, it's funny, but getting ready for this podcast. Obviously, before we get into Mind Unveiled, my birthday was like a few weeks ago, and we went to medieval times. Thank you. Medieval times, bro. You know what I'm saying? To learn about
that's a medieval times crown right there on Nick Cage.
Oh, on Nick Cage, yeah.
You know what's crazy, dude? So it was competitive, right? You saw the knights going at it, and obviously they weren't killing each other. And then the queen, obviously, I don't know if they do this in your show, but they're like, should they fight to the death? And everyone's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, dog, like, this is crazy what we're experiencing right now. I mean, granted, obviously, from if you take in consideration what's going on right now, too, you know what I mean? I don't want to say anything about that unless you guys want to, but just hearing people be like, yeah, let's see him die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bro, this is medieval times and there's kids here, bro. Like, you want to see this fool's guts all over this?
Well, you got the kids cheering for it too, which is funny. They're super into it with their crowns and everything.
Well, dude, I mean, bro, people playing Call of Duty nowadays, that's a sort of MK Ultra right there. People have good headphones on, they put it on, they're immersed. Even when you go into the VR stuff, like, even though that's, it's fake, again, that uncanny valley where you're in a game, but even then you're getting in the zone. Sometimes you get pissed off, you start screaming this and that. And I don't know if you guys saw that hockey player that happened.
Dude,
I think
that shit was brutal.
That was crazy, bro.
It's crazy. Like
that was wild.
And people are accusing. They're calling for that dude's head. I don't watch hockey, but Matt Petgrave is his name, and people are calling him a murderer. Name? Petgrave. It's pretty morbid name.
Interesting.
Right? Last name, right?
Yeah.
Pet Cemetery. But people are calling for like, oh, he should be convicted as a murderer. That's murder right there. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. You know what you signed up for. It's an unfortunate event, but that video's wild, man.
That's crazy.
You got to prove you have to prove intent or something like that. I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to talk about it, but it looked like it was intentional. Like the whole way that he swung around, like trying to do kung fu or something. Like, I don't know, but
it's not a hockey move.
I stopped watching, like, because there's something about, I did an episode. It's called Crowd Psychology by Gustave Le Bon.
Okay.
And it's from the late 19th century. And, every time that you look into something from like an academic point of view, there's always some like occultic aspect to it all. And he talks about like this barbaric nature that, like I was mentioning at the beginning, we all kind of can tap into that. Some people will say the shadow self, the dark self, all these different names for it, but this barbaric aspect to human nature. And something happens when people are in crowds, when they're together.
Right.
And Gustave Le Bon, he talks about this thing that's present in these crowds. We saw with the riots when all that stuff was going down. We saw how crazy people were getting, and how you're saying it's going on now with wanting to unalive other people, right? So
Right.
the way he referred to it was he called it the contagion. And again, he couldn't explain it, but he said that there was a force, like a something otherworldly that weaves its way in and out of the crowd and turns people into these things like zombies and all that stuff, right? Like that's
Mhm.
you know, the whole thing we've always seen. And the crowd itself, whether that's a nation, that's a small group of people somewhere, you know, outside of a courthouse, outside of a city, whatever it is, you know, there's certain criteria that will make a group of people a crowd.
Right.
The crowd will become its own living organism, and that organism is only as smart as the dumbest person in it. So
Mm.
the dumbest person in that crowd is as smart as that crowd's going to get, right? And you see people do things that they wouldn't otherwise do if they weren't in that crowd setting, right? Some people will call it peer pressure, like, oh, do it, you know,
Mhm.
don't be a bro, you know, do it.
Mhm.
And it's like there's something like, oh, okay, and then they end up doing it. Well, they wouldn't have done it otherwise if it wasn't for that setting that they were in. And
Right.
this scholar that was writing, he's the father of crowd psychology, was writing about it, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what else to call it. I'm going to call it the contagion, and it's a force, like something that takes over people. I'm like, what? You know, so again, coming from an academic perspective, a book that they haven't really done it, you know, that was his magnum opus, but they haven't done another work on crowd psychology. He's the one that really, you know, put it all together at the beginning. It was like 1896. And he's talking about like some occult force that's taking over people, almost like they're being possessed. Like how I mentioned at the beginning, where people, they act different. You see it in their eyes, man. Their
Yeah,
eyes
for
just
sure.
gloss over and they turn black, and it's really scary. But again, an academic guy referring to it, you know, he's like, we don't know what it is. It's just the contagion. I'm like, yo, that's sick, bro.
It's like the heavy metal concerts where people get crazy and like start moshing, you know? You're down to take like a spinning hook kick to the chin.
Yeah.
If the guy's like, hey, you all right? Charge you with a left.
I'm not into
But
that type of stuff, but
I would say, as much as I was against seeing people die, I was like, if the majority were to pick to the death, then I'm down to see that. But anyways, I brought that up because I want to bring up, who's your favorite fighter in MMA, bro? Before we jump into the rabbit hole.
Adesanya, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's different classes, but Adesanya's like, I guess one of those. He's pretty good. I would say him. And
yeah,
I like McGregor's walk, but I know he's not fighting anymore. But that was hilarious, by the way. The what do they call it? Does it have a name? The walk that he does with his
the
arms?
billionaire strut or whatever. McGregor has a lot of like a cult around him, right?
I don't
Yeah,
know,
From
bro.
Ireland and shit.
a lot of
Yeah.
loyal fans.
Yeah. I'll send you some that I find out. But anyways, we went to medieval times. That's why I brought it up, because I looked into the Mind Unveiled 10-hour documentary. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's why
drill.
I hit you up right away, Juan. Like, you know, I know you've been in a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews about the homunculus. And so I kind of didn't want to bring it up in the first 2 episodes, but goddamn, I had to bring it up for this one. I was like, bro, we have the homuncologist on our podcast, but we haven't spoken about the homunculus. So now from that context, you know what I mean? I just feel like now is the appropriate time to have a homunculus debrief, you know what I'm saying? Based on the Mind Unveiled that you helped out do some research.
I ain't do
And I've been
shit,
prepping the
bro.
guys. I've been prepping the guys kind of about homunculus and reframing it as like ancient clones instead, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So,
Oh, you poor
yeah.
soul. Like I know, bro. Everyone, like there's that how many views does that video have, bro? Hold on.
Which one? The Mind Unveiled?
Yeah, so let's see it.
Bro,
Let's see.
the fucking comments on that's like, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. 10-hour video. What the
So Mind Unveiled, let's see here. It has 364,000 views. All right. So that was 4 months ago, and that video took like 6 or 7 months to make. And there's people that I know, bro, that I know of, who have watched that and like all of a sudden they're homuncologists overnight. And I know of people who are actually trying to make homunculus like in real life because of that video, bro. So it's kind of like, and I get comments about this all the time where, you know, there's certain, because that's essentially what we're talking about. We're talking about knowledge that back then a secret society of people, a group of people got together and were like, listen, we can't reveal these secrets. Therefore, we're going to write really cryptically. We're going to take all these symbols and they're going to mean other stuff. Therefore, only those who are initiated, who are willing to be the hermit or be the lone wolf, will study 100% of the time and figure this secret out if they're able to figure it out. So, and that's the backlash I get sometimes where you're talking about stuff that other people join secret societies to learn. Like I've gotten emails where like, dude, you know, I joined XYZ group. It's a scam. I didn't need to. I'm like, why do you need to join a certain group of people to learn? So like, read a book, bro. And literally any information that you could ever want about anything is on the internet to be found. We have the most information available in our fingertips right now at this point in time than anyone else in history. Like if you go back, right? And yet we're dumber now than we were back then. Like how many phone numbers do you remember nowadays, bro?
Put me on the spot, dog.
You know what I'm saying?
You should tell me before the podcast.
Maybe your moms and your dads, maybe your girlfriends or your wife or whatever, maybe. But other than that, like, what else do you? Nothing. Like, we don't remember people's birthdays if it weren't for Facebook or whatever it is.
Directions too, dog. Like to get places.
Remember
MapQuest?
Oh my god, MapQuest! You print that shit out and then had to drive around all these paper.
I'm only 29. I remember the papers. I wasn't old enough to drive. So, so by the time I started driving, it was already, because I graduated in 2012 when the world was supposed to end. Never did. We're still here. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. But
spiritually, dog, spiritually.
So that's the backlash I get where we're talking about these secrets that people will join organizations that are initiated and then swear an oath of secrecy and then hear me I went to YouTube University and got my PhD in homuncology at the University of YouTube. Like that makes people feel some type of way. You know what I'm saying? When I'm talking about stuff and I'm not practicing it, you know, I'm an armchair occultist. I got people throwing shade at me, all these armchair occultists. I don't care, bro. Like I don't want to do this stuff. I find it super fascinating. I find history really fascinating. And again, that way of thinking on how memetics, how ideas are able to spread through a culture. And then how these powers that be are injecting things, right? Society itself is a homunculi. They're injecting things into the culture to see how it spreads. Like how you're saying, like superheroes. Well, you know, superheroes is pretty. Some of them are pretty occult, bro. Like super. Yeah. Like they have an Aleister Crowley and was it the
Doctor Strange?
Something they have anyways, they have stuff in it, and it's like these cinemagicians and all these different things that are happening to really, you know, move things around, shift the energy around. Like I like to learn about those things. And the occult has so many different avenues. There's so much to learn. You could focus on one person in history for 30 hours and you still won't pick apart everything about them, right? And especially these other guys that were prolific writers. Like Crowley wrote so much stuff, dude. He wrote so much that every single one of his novels, he wrote novels. Or his books, you know, take your pick. Like, dude, did you know I did an episode this week where he did a ritual where he like crucified a frog, and at first he worshiped the frog. It was like Jesus incarnated, and then he charged the frog with like blasphemy or something, and then he crucified the frog, stabbed it to death, and then cooked it and ate it, and then it was like, oh, your elemental spirit's gonna guard over me after this. Like Crowley did that. Books Liber 70 or something like that. But again, you have people like, oh, dude, he's just trolling you, bro. That's just to knock you off the path, right? Because
Yeah.
if you can't withstand that, then you can't withstand everything else that's about to, like, bro, the problem is that some dude who isn't initiated is going to try and do exactly what he said. So some dude is going to watch the 10-hour homunculus video and is going to be like, yo, I know how to make a homunculus now.
Matrix. I know homunculi.
I know alchemy, like, and then they start just mixing things together and making, you know, because dude, some of the most famous and they're, I guess, some of the most influential alchemists, they were like, yo, all the people talking about homunculus, you guys are retarded. Like, that doesn't exist. Like, that's not even a thing in alchemy. Like, there's even alchemists within the community that are like, yo, that's not even a thing. Everyone keeps talking about this. It's not a thing. We're not after that. But then you got, again, because you have different schools of thought. Like, yeah, right. Even within the cave, right, the Platonists, they all had different ideas. They have different, the Gnostics, they had different sects. There was like over 50 sects of Gnosticism. You know what I'm saying? Like, they all believe different things. So you have the Valentinian path, you have the Paracelsian path, you have the dry path, wet path. Like, there's a whole bunch of different paths in alchemy, and it's like these dudes were just doing whatever they wanted to do at the end. I mean, you know, and that's what I find fascinating, because it's such a huge part of history. And I go, were these dudes full of it and they were just trolling everybody? Because that could be like also a big aspect of it. Like, they were just trolling, just trolling hard on and just like trying to get away with it. Or they actually held some sacred knowledge, because there's like the same story recurring. Like, this dude left this reality, was able to do something. He left this reality. And the problem with that is that it's not just regular people. It's like always kings, queens who had full courts of alchemists working, trying to achieve this magnum opus for them. So either they were being conned, which is 100% on board. They could have been like, yo, the more you bother me, the longer I'm going to take to get this philosopher's stone. Now, leave me alone. Let me do my thing in my alchemical lab. And this is just mixing things together all day long. The king comes along, yo, you got that stone? He's like, bro, leave me alone. All right, let me do a transmutation for you real quick. Boom, here. Look, I turned lead into gold. Now, I'm going to try and figure out to do with the other stuff over here, but you got to give me some more time. And they just kept doing that until they died. Like, oh, whoops, I couldn't do it this time around. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that the elites were interested in this aspect of, you know, some people say it's early science, which absolutely was early science, because, bro, from the practice of alchemists trying to figure out the magnum opus, which could have been the philosopher's stone, elixir of life, the divine androgen, the homunculus, whatever, all these different things that you could do. From that, we have chemistry. We have porcelain came from a dude trying to achieve the philosopher's stone. Like, Leibniz, the guy who invented binary code, the ones and zeros in our computer, he was obsessed with alchemy. He led like this alchemical group. He was going around collecting stories of transmutations, right? So not dumb people in society. Jack Parsons, if he was a rocket scientist or not, he was believing the works of Crowley. And because of Crowley's writings, he did the Babylon working with L. Ron Hubbard. Now, all these guys could have been, you know, assets of the government, 100%, right? That's also an aspect of it. Or, right, they're taking literally something that was meant to be taken symbolically, and they're stepping it to the next level. You have Parsons, who was a rocket scientist, seeing explosions in the lab and explosions and doing the hymn to Pan every time a rocket would go into space. So, right, space. I'm gonna hit you with this button, bro. Hold up. I got this button. Check it out.
Space is fake and gay.
Space is fake and gay.
So, if space is fake and gay or not, again, that's a whole nother podcast. But he is a guy that was used to seeing results. So when he's doing the occult, he's like, yo, I want to see the homunculus for real. So I'm going to do this ritual to try and make something. I want to see things move. I want to see all, you know, so they're taking it above and beyond. Now, point being that even after all these hours of reading about these things and studying it and doing whatever, I still don't know if it's a real aspect or not. And then you have guys like Carl Jung that were heavily into alchemy, but more from a spiritual point of view, where they're like, he's like, yo, these dudes weren't making a philosopher's stone or nothing like that. These dudes were making themselves believe that they had a philosopher's stone. Therefore, right, they were putting themselves in a sort of mindset to bring forth this change. So they weren't actually affecting matter. They were affecting their minds. And that kind of sort of did some stuff in the world. It's like, what, bro? Like, you're not even, you know, like, you're not even helping the case. So you're talking about the mind causing a change in reality, right? He referred to them as like the first self-help group, like the first people to, right? They always say mind over matter. Well, they were applying that. But it was deeper than that. It was, you know, because there's something about work. I like to work with my hands. There's something about you working with your hands at the same time. I don't know about you, but, you know, I'll put on an audio book or I'll put on a podcast and I'll go out and start picking weeds or start doing yard work, and I'm in the zone and I grasp things better because I'm working with my hands at the same time while ingesting this information. Or when you're journaling and your retention goes up way higher. And I think that's what they're trying to take us away from, right? Because they want us to type everything. They want us, bro, you don't know how to spell certain words. You type it wrong, knowing that it's wrong, and hopefully the autocorrect will take over and fix it.
It's getting that way.
I do
now,
that.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Bro, I don't even know my passwords anymore, dog. Like,
No.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know my password.
No one needs
either.
to know that. No one needs to know that.
No, I'm with you, bro. Like, and again, this is a whole different conversation, like technology and how it's bad, good, whatever. But point being that I still don't know if it's a real thing, like this whole homunculus thing, if it's a real concept or if it was, you know, a fake concept, or because and the problem is that we know that today cloning is a real thing. We know that they're growing things in false matrices and false wombs. We know that these things are happening. Let's just say, you know, to give it the benefit of the doubt, these guys back then had access to some of the same techniques that they're using today. They had some form of that technology back in their day, and they were just able to do it back then, right?
Right.
And then, you know, you got people who I love the people who will comment and be like, oh, look at this dude taking alchemy, allegory, and symbols. Literally, I'm gonna go, woe to those who accept the rambling allegory, whatever, however, it's Manly P. Hall. Woe to those who accept the ramblings of an alchemist, right, as literal, which you got, and that's why, that's also part of the secret. Like, there's multiple layers of interpretation when it comes to these things, and maybe you're taking the historical aspect and you fully understand the historical aspect of it, but it still doesn't make sense to you. So you try to interpret it in a spiritual aspect, and maybe the spiritual aspect makes sense to you a little bit, right? But those two things have to come together to work in one. And then there's the metaphorical aspect of it, then the symbolic aspect of it. Like Manly P. Hall talks about how certain ancient scripture is meant to be interpreted seven different ways, historical being the lowest of those. So if you take the Bible and you interpret it historically as a matter of fact thing that happened for real, and again, I'm just using an example, you're interpreting it from the lowest possible perspective that you can interpret it as. Okay. And that's given something that I like, even the Bible, I believe, has alchemical allegories and things hidden within the Bible. I mean, there is evidence, even alchemists that were writing full commentaries on the first books of Genesis, because they believed that the first books of Genesis held the secret on how to create another reality, like a smaller world, essentially, a philosopher's stone type of thing. They believe that. And I mean, like I'm translating right now, this dude that wrote 1,200 pages on the first two chapters of Genesis. It's like 1,200 pages, my guy.
Yeah, I see you going in on deep dives of the Bible, and we'll talk off air on that one because I want to get into that. But yeah, the homunculus, just the idea of it is multi-meaning, right? And
Mhm.
only obviously the initiated knows what's going on, if they know it's real or not, or if they know if it's spiritual, obviously, or an actual physical thing. But the murky gray area where you could get lost in translation, and that that video that Mind Unveiled, we'll get off that and get into the rabbit hole. What he did with breaking down all the art was crazy, because now knowing that knowledge and looking at the art, it's like, damn, it makes the art kind of feel different. If you like the Da Vinci Code and all that, you know what I mean? Then you know what I'm talking about. But all right, let's go jump into the rabbit hole. Why I really like conspiracy theories is I play this game called Assassin's Creed, right? And in the beginning, it's about the Templars, and the Templars are obviously like the people in control, you know? I didn't know that the Templars went all the way back and somehow connected to the homunculus and all that stuff. If they do, I mean, we'll get into that. But I remember we posted, that homunculus post that we did, and initially I thought it was just kind of like a cryptid, something
Yeah.
like a organic talisman, like you said. And it's funny because I saw some pages from your homunculus pamphlet,
Yeah.
and the with the sock, the magical sock, and so there is truth to that. You know what I mean? People
Yeah.
are inadvertently, possibly, putting shit out there, but it's
So
multi-meaning. You know what I mean? So what do you think it means? Because I also watched that anime, The Homunculus, on Netflix, and that kind
oof.
of broke it down differently than a talisman. It was more like kind of who you really are, your light body. Remember, I talked about kind of your astral form. Why people don't want to take pictures of people. So, what do you think it is personally? A
So
homunculus.
the homunculus movie from Netflix, the episode I actually put out this week, it has to do with that elemental entities and Paracelsian prophecies, where the concept in that movie, again, it was Paracelsian, because Paracelsus is the first guy to ever coin the word homunculus, the name, Latin for little man. And in that particular movie, they mixed two different concepts of Paracelsian origin, and then they named it homunculus. And essentially what they were showing in that movie was actually elementary spirits. And there's elementals, which come from nature. Then there's elementary spirits, which are the excess of our emotions, our feelings, so thought forms, emotion forms, whatever else, that attach themselves to, again, like how you're saying, this astral body of ours. And the protagonist in that particular movie, he was able to, after they drilled, right, which is an actual procedure, I believe it's called trepanation, something like that, where they drill a hole in your skull, and they drilled a hole into his skull, and he was able to cover his eye and see these homunculi on people. That again was the elementary spirit concept. And he was able to see these things that were weighing people down, which were traumas and all these different aspects of their lives. But it was like that Faustian pact, where you're able to see people's homunculi, but then they attach themselves to you, right? You're able to extract people from their pain and make them better again, but at what cost? Like, what are you willing to give up? Are you that selfless where you're able to put that on yourself, but then heal your other person, whatever, fellow citizen or fellow whatever, right? The other person on the other side. And that's also like a homunc-esque topic, because according to neuropsychology, there is a homunculus in our brains, right? So you have, there's something called the Cartesian theater, which is, they always wonder, like, if I'm observing my reality now, is there a little guy or a homunculus in my brain sitting down and watching the screen too? But then if there's a little guy in my head watching a screen of my eyes, what's in its head, right? So it's ad infinitum, homunculus all the way down. That's why I've said homunculi all the way down, because they quite literally believe that. But then there's also the aspect of the cortex man, the sensory homunculus, which is a map of your neural pathways, essentially, of which parts your brain controls the most. And that's the homunculus you see with the big hands, big lips, like weird looking little body guy. That's a cortex man. So that's a a neural pathway map, I think that's what they call it, showing which parts of your body your brain controls the most. So, right, we do a lot of talking, so the lips are real big, you know, the hands are real big because we're always touching stuff. And then there's
bro, it's like you, bro.
there's also
It's
another
funny.
one where I forgot the name of it, but they say, okay, yeah, so it is the cortex, man. The neural pathways, depending on how much you use your left hand over your right hand, right? Sometimes they're constantly moving. And what that is showing is that depending on what's your surroundings, depending on what's going on around you, that could be constantly moving. So quite literally, your homunculus is always morphing into a new homunculus, depending on the stimuli that you're receiving in your life or your surrounding, whatever it is. And again, the homunculus is an actual term in anatomy. Like in medicine, homunculus is an actual term that they've taken over. So that's the cortex, man, there, and that's supposed to, you see crazy. Right there, overlaid over your brain is this cortex, man, and it shows which parts of your body you use the most. And everyone's homunculus looks different because we all use our bodies differently. So, you know, your left hand might be bigger than my left hand on your homunculus because you are left-handed and I'm right-handed, right? So again, and that's, they also tap into traumas as well, which I don't know a lot about that one, but point being that our little homunculus is always constantly changing. And in that manga, that they took again, the more research you do, because there's so many aspects of this that you can really dive into, they took two different Paracelsian like concepts and merge it into one. And at first I didn't know that because I hadn't studied elementals and the significance that has with the homunculus. And then the elementary spirits, like that gets into thought forms, tulpas, egregores, like things of your consciousness that, right, they're the excess of that. So when you start to really, again, mind over matter. So that's, they believed back then that a lot of the illnesses that you were experiencing, some were supernatural. And if they were supernatural in nature, they could be treated with supernatural means. So Paracelsus was like, yo, this dude's got a headache. Well, it's probably like some little demon like stabbing him and on the back of the head or whatever, because he was feeling bad that day or whatever. Or like he gets into incubus and succubus and all these different things where it's like they believe that the mental powers of man, since we came from Adam, which was made in the image of God, and he had some sort of divinity. Man is not only a creator of life, so that's why they saw, right, sperm as like the nectar of the gods type of thing. It was like supernatural, because if you could take your sperm and grow a little person inside of a woman, it's like, well, let me take that and put it in a cow, a monkey, a creature, whatever it is, because it's supernatural. And Paracelsus was like, listen, not only can we procreate in real life, but man is also an architect in the imagination, right? So imaginal, like this realm that exists, this other dimension that exists out of ourselves. And like you get into the whole mundus imaginalis type of thing where it's these other dimensions that exist that you're kind of sort of able to tap into, right? And these ideas, these thought forms, they exist in this other realm, and they sometimes are able to align themselves in a frequency, or you yourself, and you're able to cross that barrier and go into these other realms, or vice versa. Those things are able to come down and touch your butthole or whatever it is that they like to do. They get real sexual all the time.
It does go into the butthole.
Always.
I saw it got into the butthole.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are more well versed in the whole homunculus than I am, so I wanted to ask, do you guys think the concept of the homunculus influenced the development of maybe like early scientific and philosophical thought?
It was always like an ethical issue, right?
Yeah. So there has always been an ethical issue to it, because like, and there's a particular, it's called the Arnoldian homunculus, and it was written by a church doctor. No, you have to tread lightly because it gets into certain realms of again, disrespecting people and their religions. But essentially this Arnold de Villanova, he was, again, they believe that they were practicing good magic. And I've read it before. You have Elias Ashmole where they're like, listen, this is natural, right? It's vegan. All right, it comes from the nature. So if God didn't want me to mix A plus B to equal C, he wouldn't have put it there, right? As long as we're not using outside influences, so demonic forces or anything, we're good. So they believe that they were, as long as it was natural and vegan and gluten-free, whatever you want to call it, that it was okay. So you had they called it natural magic, and you had a lot of theologians in the church that were practicing these arts. And this particular person, the Arnaldian homunculus, the story goes that he would make these homunculi, and as soon as they would animate and come to life, he would destroy them. Oh, shit. And they're like, yo, why are you doing that, bro? He's like, listen, I don't know if God died for that homunculus' sins. I don't know if that thing has a soul. I don't know if that thing is going to be taken over or possessed by a demonic entity. I don't know, because I'm not God. So before God notices, I'm going to go ahead and destroy it. So the whole thing about that, it's like, what makes you, what I was mentioning earlier, what makes you human? So if we make homunculus, so let's say that the government comes out and goes, yo, 50% of the population, they're all homunculus, they're all lab grown, they're not real people. Well, do they have to pay taxes? Do they have a social security number? Right? Do they get the same benefit? Do they get the same rights as us if they're not human? Right? So you start to get into like these things where they're arguing those ethics today. Recently, about a month.
Superhero. Like X-Men.
Yes. Like what was that movie with Will Smith where he was like,
I Am Legend? No, I'm Hancock. Yeah, Hancock.
Wasn't there something like that where people were pissed off at him because he was a superhero or whatever? And then, anyways, I could be wrong, but that dude's a cuck. But point being that they're arguing those things today. A month ago or two, they created some entities in a lab. I think it was in China. And they were like, is that okay? What are the ethics? Are you able, right? Are you, do they have any sort of rights if they're created? Well, they created an entity without a mother or a father. They created something. All right. And this is the exoteric that they're telling us now. So if they're telling us this now, bro, this is what they've been writing in these alchemical books. So the idea of the homunculus, you go, all these people are saying, oh, it's all symbolic, it's not meant to be. Even other alchemists like, yo, that's just fake and gay. Like all that stuff. Like, no, well, what's this? They're coming out with this in 2023. They created something. I'm saying? Oh, right. I just have you seen Full Metal Alchemist yet?
No. I actually just tried getting into it, so I watched the Netflix one.
No, like,
is that a good one? The Netflix one?
Well, there's a whole bunch of them, but you got Brotherhood.
It's a live action one, bro.
They're corny, but whatever. Anyways, I got a shirt. It's in the mail. I have to get it. But when you watch the animated, let me know and I'll show you the shirt. But anyways, the ethical aspects, absolutely. It's like, are these things human, right? And then, but who determines what's to be human, right? I mean, who determines that? What is a soul? Like, what constitutes a soul? How does a soul get in a body? How'd you get your soul? How'd you get your consciousness? So there's all those things that, again, guys like Crowley, who are writing about the homunculus, were also trying to put together their formulas to create these beings, and they were soul fishing, essentially is what they were doing. They were trying to take these elemental entities that are outside of space and time, these gods, goddesses with a little g, trying to bring them into these vessels that were the homunculi, because some theologians were like, yo, these homunculus, they're soulless, right? Therefore, you're creating a vessel for a demonic entity. And even better yet, you're creating a synthetic demon is what you're doing by creating these things. Oh, and better yet, they were like, yo, the alchemist or the practitioner or whatever conducting these experiments, they're a demon and they're being possessed as well by some otherworldly force to make these things. And I mean, again, this is all in the literature where they're like, all right, homunculi or artificial demons, the people making them are also demonically possessed. And these things are just empty vessels for something else to get into them.
Well, isn't a pathway to do all of that through CRISPR? It's a funny name. I think it sounds like that
Well,
like an air fryer. Really, it's like a
before
funny
we
name.
before we get into CRISPR, I just want to establish. So because it's controversial, right? You could smoke screen it as a astral, because it sounds like it could be taken as an astral avatar, right?
That's
Like
another kind of homunculus. So
kind of like an archetype. So Carl Jung could be kind of like that, right?
so let me break it down, because I know we've been all over the place, and
Mhm.
we're gonna switch it up a little bit, so I'm not repeating the same thing over and over again. As that I've repeated in other shows, but
Yeah, you've
so
been
yeah, I've done a lot. So
homuncologist.
to break it down for people, we're talking about the alchemical homunculus, which is one of the homunculus. Now, there's also
Like a neurological one, right?
There's a neurological one. There is a Paracelsus had actual like breakdowns in different types, but that'd be considered a Paracelsian homunculus, right? And what I've done is I've recognized things that wouldn't, because remember, from the 16th century on is when we have the word homunculus. So before the 16th century, they weren't called homunculus. They were called the form. I've seen it called the child. I've seen it called the creation. I've seen it called, what else is an interesting one? So the form, the child. Anyways, other word, proto homunculi. We can call those before 16th century proto homunculi, which is the same concept, except it's not Paracelsian, because Paracelsus was the father of the homunculus. So and that just confused people more. But to answer your question, there is homunculi on different layers of reality. So we have the alchemical homunculus, which is the typical little man in a glass vessel, which is the alchemy made through alchemy. And since alchemy is supernatural and magical, therefore whatever is made from that art, from the great work, has some of that divinity and some of that magic within it. So that's why alchemical homunculi are magical. They're able to divinate for you. They're able to tell you, right? They're able to prophesize. They're able to find you treasure. They're able to turn you invisible. And then that's if you let it live. Because these alchemists were like, yo, if I chop it up and I eat this toenail of the homunculus, then I can walk through walls. So there's entire grimoires that are manuals on how to do magical operations that tell you if you take the skin of its forehead and wrap its heart in it, you can talk to demons. And again, that's just one of many operations which use your imagination. There's a lot of different ones. And one of my favorite, then they go through like the steps on how to create the homunculus. And one of my favorite ones is where you got to beat a cow carcass with the biggest dog dick you can find. And like, again, depending on the depending on the, I promise this is a.
You're not down? You're not down, bro?
What, dude? No, I'm down. The problem is, how do you know you got the biggest dog dick? Like, how do you go about comparing dog dicks? Like, how big can it get? Like, what's a medium size? What's a big? So again, I think it's dogmen dicks, like huge cryptid dogmen dicks. You got to get, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, point being that there is instructions, like clear instructions on how to do these things. So it's like, they may mean something completely different, and they may mean something symbolic, but old Florida man don't know that, and he's trying to do it for real, right? So he's trying to make a real blood and bones homunculus that was meant to be like, oh, you got to conjure it with your consciousness, and you got to imagine yourself beating the cow carcass with the dog dick. It's all mental, bro. So you have earlier versions of a proto homunculi, which the Taoist monks, they would meditate. And through meditation and through semen retention, they would create this little golden being within their body that they would project out. So the men would impregnate themselves, and they would project out of their solar plex this little golden man, this little entity that would form into a man, a little human being, crystallize and turn to gold, and then run into the wild, right? In some aspects. There's other ones where it's like attached to like a silver cord, like up in your astral world, right? And the point of that little golden man, the thing that was supposed to represent was that once that monk was able to, or Buddhist was able to project that little thing outwards, a part of themselves exists in this reality. And therefore, when they died and they passed on with their material body, they would escape samsara. They would not have to reincarnate because this little golden man, which was part of them, part of their consciousness, part of their semen, part of their bodily fluids, all inside of them, was projected outwards. Now, that could be a physical little golden man, or again, there's depictions of and drawings of it where it's just a little being inside of you. And through meditation, you're able to tap into this, homunculus that's within everyone. That's why I always tell everyone, before you can love yourself, you got to love your homunculus, because Paracelsus also talked about how we all have a homunculus within ourselves. And it's like, again, it's something that the more you dig into it, you go, wait, what is going on? And the 10-hour video that Mind Unveiled did, I'm not going to put words in MU's mouth, but he added a very big Mind Unveiled aspect to it, which it's from I'm not going to call it Tartarian view, but from a like lost civilization that history has occulted from us, and a lot of things in history aren't being explained. They don't add up. There's a lot of things to So the way he's looking at it, it's like this was an ancient technology that's been used to populate all these cities that were allegedly already there, but they were empty, right? There's pictures of all these cities, but they're empty. It's like, well, they took all these Cabbage Patch Kids through alchemical knowledge. They grew them. They were incubator babies at these world fairs, and they were just selling babies. And they used these orphan trains to populate all of the United States and all these cities that we have no explanation for, right? That's what he was getting at. And then he took the art, and I remember when we were like sharing notes and going over, and I'm like, dude, what in the world? Like, he was going hard. And this is, again, this is a guy that he goes above and beyond. So what he did is he took the concept and like really just like full send. So the first part is like, I helped him out with, and like the middle and like the end where it's like, he just really ties it in. That was him. That was really him. And I helped him. Like, I gave him like a frame of like, yo, this is this and this. I helped him find like certain documents. We translated certain documents, and we're like finding things together and all these different things. And yeah, he took it a step above and beyond, especially with the Voynich manuscript and the paintings. Yeah, that was probably my favorite part, where you got the little Jesus ray or whatever it was. Like,
bro, that blew my mind. I told everybody, look at the nativity scene, any of them. Why is the cow looking at Jesus, man?
Well, that's the aspect of it that pisses people off.
Holy cow, right? Holy cow.
Because that gets into, and that's going to be a chapter in my book, Artificial Prophets, because if you look at a lot of different prophets throughout various religions, a lot of them have like this homunc-esque origin story. Like, they're born from an immaculate concept. Now, I'm not saying all babies are homunculi, but if we're applying it, and this was also and I love when people call me out. I'm a researcher. I'm finding these ideas. I'm finding these concepts, and I'm bringing them to light. So the concept of me saying that Jesus Christ, I believe in Jesus Christ, was a homunculus, that's not my idea, bro. That's an idea from Alonso Tostado from the 15th century, a theologian, church doctor that was arguing with some other guy about the possibility of Jesus Christ being a homunculus. Those aren't my ideas. I'm researching the concept, and I'm like, yo, these dudes were arguing about Jesus being a homunculus. Like, that's not me. That was 15th century, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a long time ago that they were writing about this. They were writing about the ethics of like what makes, it's like, well, if we want to get technical, and the guys were just going, you can look this up, you can translate it yourself. It's like, if you want to get technical, well, Jesus was this, and they list all their arguments, and then the other guy comes in and is like, yo, no, it's like a Twitter war, like, yo, he's like, don't at me, dog, like, he's not a homunculus, and then the other guy's like, he's not because boom, 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 boom. So
Blocked.
exactly. And people go, oh, you know, it's blasphemy. It's like, I even come
Yeah.
up with the concept, bro. Like this is,
Right.
and that's what's fascinating about it, because like things that you thought were like, yo, Jesus can't be homo, that's already been thought of. Like somebody already
Mhm.
wrote about that. And some people were already having arguments about that back then. And then the fact that Jesus was like painted as a little homunculus in all these paintings, like, yo, like what's really going, because like literally the definition of a homunculus is a little man, a miniature man. And they
Right.
painted him intentionally as a homunculus, not the alchemical homunculus, mind you,
Mhm.
but the literal meaning of the word, because they were like, yo, this little baby's the Messiah, bro. Like, we got to make this dude look a little bit more legit. Like, we got to give him a 5 o'clock shadow, give him a nice little robe, give him a nice hairdo. Yeah, give him a 6-pack. Yeah. Our Messiah's gonna have a 6-pack. You know what I'm saying? So, and the reason that they were trying to do that is because pictorial magic, images, sigils, things that people are able to see with their, you know, people will see a picture before they read what it says. So the reason that they wanted to do that was to solidify in people like, yo, he's our Messiah, but he has some more prestige, which prestige is also part of Gustave Le Bon's writings. With the guy I mentioned
Right.
earlier, the crowd, prestige is something that radiates off of you, that makes people believe in you. You know, the way people look at you and perceive you because of your prestige is this, again, metaphysical thing that people are just able to latch on. You see how sometimes people talk, like you ever hang out with Narco Longo and he talks to people? He's like a cult leader, bro. People just like, boom, they lock in. I go, this freaking
Mhm.
hippie, bro. Anyways, shout out
Yeah.
to Narco Longo. But point being that some people have this charisma about them, right? Like they're like, people gravitate more towards them, and it's according to this prestige. So they were like, yo, we want to make this little baby more prestigious, more legitimate.
Yeah.
So let's draw him as a little Joe Rogan. And I mean, it looks like that. You can look up the pictures.
Yeah.
You know,
But nowadays, you could do that with CRISPR, right? Isn't that the whole basis of it, to edit your genome sequencing and to make you perfect in a sense? Isn't that like there was controversies thinking
Oof.
like they can make designer babies now? Like, oh, I want him, like you said, make the perfect Messiah, let's say. So someone wants to have this child, and it's like, you know what? Let's edit their DNA before the baby's even born, which is crazy. So at that point, it's like you said, what does that have a soul, or you edited it? What happens to that at that point? Is it even a natural thing anymore?
Before we get into CRISPR, I just want to say that, okay, I'm into that, bro. And I going down into it, I talk to Christians, and it's like, I feel like it's not blasphemous. It's just I went down the rabbit hole, and it's all about following Christ down the path, right? You know what I mean? I followed the path, and I just found out some that could possibly be it. You know, you don't have to fully accept it,
I don't know,
but
bro. I don't think
just to know, you gotta, you know, what the is communion? You know what I
that's not
mean?
what they meant, bro. I don't think it's like, I followed the homunculus route. I found Jesus
Oh,
in
man.
the chemical
Hey,
rabbit hole.
call Sunday off then.
Yeah. No,
I'm just
well, I
kidding.
mean, again, it's and by the way, somebody ran the numbers. I'm not trying to be a supremacist or anything, but somebody ran the numbers, an algorithm ran the numbers, and the perfect genome is actually a Puerto Rican woman. All right. So as part of the Puerto Rican community, I take pride in being Puerto Rican, because according to the AI, somebody ran the numbers, the perfect specimen would be Puerto Rican. So I'm just gonna put that out there, you know, talking about CRISPR and stuff. But I don't know enough about as far, so this is something I got asked. If a homunculus would be considered a clone. And I'd say no, because a clone would be a version of you, but in a homunculus, you're using your seed, and it's essentially like a child of yours. It'd be like an offspring. So you'd be making a new human, and it would just so happen to be alchemical, so therefore it'd be a homunculus. I don't know if it'd be a clone, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't essentially cloning people, which that's where it gets weird, because it's like you're making a new human from your seed. It could be anyone. And then you have like the whole golem, which the golem is a fully grown entity thing made from like word magic, and they're animating clay essentially. So it's like a clay man. So they fully form it, and then they bring it to life through magic. So it's like you have two different which are kind of from like the same line of thinking. So the Paracelsian homunculus came first, then where you had the golem, 16th century Prague. Then you had Frankenstein come from that line of thinking too, right? And then Frankenstein is more like a chimera type of thing that was animated through the use of electricity. And then, you have the whole aspect of your creation goes out of control. So like Terminator type of thing, like, when technology goes too far, you can't control it. So you have like some sort of moral story behind it, which I guess is don't trust tech or something. I don't know. But as far as like CRISPR, I don't know. You tell me, like, would you consider a human, like people are grown in vitro? Those are essentially test tube babies. I mean, they're grown outside the womb. Would you consider those people human? I mean, are those people human? I know people who are close friends of mine who were test tube babies essentially. And, I consider them human, but like, who are we? And that's why, like, who are we to determine that? And I think that there's a pattern, right? Going back to like what I mentioned at the beginning, how we have like this barbaric nature to ourselves, but even as humans, we kind of always want to get godlike power. We want to be gods, like essentially, like we want to. And I mean, this has been an argument throughout, when you have people like the new age, you are a god, like slay, like whatever the they say, like some gay, like, oh yeah, you are, like all this stuff, like this new age thinking. The Gnostics were saying that, bro. And that's why they were wiped out. They're like, yo, you don't got to go to church to achieve divinity. It's like through gnosis, through meditation, through learning, you can become a god yourself. It's like, oh, that's blasphemy. It's like, I don't believe in any of that. I don't think that man is perfect enough to achieve unity with. I think we can get close to the Godhead. And part of the homunculus was that extracting godlike powers from this thing. And then another thing was becoming a god. So creating life, right? Synthetic life. But then there was also that dehumanizing and putting women down as well was another, because mind you, this time that it was at, they were like, yo, women contribute nothing to the childbirth process, which we know that's crazy, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. So, but they didn't believe that back then. They were like, women are inferior to men. I'm not saying that, right? People are probably going to clip that out. This is, again, according to Aristotelian, Paracelsian views of the 16th and 3rd, 4th century, whenever Aristotelian biology was a thing, which Aristotelian biology was a thing till like the 18th century. So we didn't advance in our ideas till very late on. And it's thanks to a lot of these alchemists that we have these new ideas, because through their endeavor and pursuit of the woo-woo, we're able to have legitimate science or seance, whatever you want to call it.
Right,
what I'm saying? So there's always, like, I feel like a spiritual thing to everything. And that's why it's important to, whenever you do something, right, give it 110%. Don't half-ass it. Put your heart, what they say, heart and soul into it. And I think that's like an alchemical thing to say, because they literally believed that they were becoming one with nature. They were becoming one with everything, right? They were extracting the essences of reality, of they were deconstructing reality down to its purest forms. And I mean, it takes a person of sane and clear mind to achieve that. So it was a meditative thing as well. And that's why, I forget who it is, but I think Manly P. Hall, where he talks about how the alchemists are working on 4 different planes of reality at the same simultaneously. And Paracelsus said, if not until the alchemist is able to purify himself will he be able to achieve the magnum opus. So not until you learn to love, again, your homunculus, are you going to be able to love yourself. And I think that's, again, that's alchemy is a multi-dimensional, interdimensional topic where it's all that literal stuff and more above and beyond, like quite literally, So, and that's why I love about learning about it. And every time I'm like digging into something, I'll have like this brand new character who just so happens to be an alchemist with some super interesting backstory. I'm like, oh, I'm going to dive into that guy and whatever his ideas was, but still with alchemy at the base of it. And dude, I've gone down some rabbit holes with that where it's like, it's never ending, man.
It feels like so multi-layered. I mean, like even the Jesus thing, you can go and make your own religion off of that. You know what I mean? And there's enough characters and enough storylines in order to just kind of mix and match in order to make your own cult, right? And tell it your way, I feel like. So it's pretty crazy.
As
It's
long
confusing. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you kind of go deeper down the cave and you're like, I don't know where to go anymore. You know what I mean?
That's why I tell people to, do your own research.
Mhm.
Don't trust me and what I'm saying. Like, no, like, read the stuff. I can give you my sources. Like, I don't, Mind Unveiled has a whole sheet where he breaks down all the sources. You can take the time to read everything there and make of it what you will. And that's the thing. I'm not here to convince anyone of anything.
Mhm.
I'm not here to disrespect anyone. I'm here to have an interesting conversation, talk about interesting topics, talk about whatever I want to talk about, and what people do with that information is up to them, really. I mean, and I'm not here to disrespect anyone. That's the whole thing. Like when people are like, oh, you need Jesus. Like, well, I've already accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior a long time ago, my guy. So joke's on you. It's like, I'm just a bit, because people assume that just because you talk about things, you automatically
Right.
believe it. It's like, bro, I've read and I've talked about some crazy. I don't believe all of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's interesting to talk about lizard people, interdimensional lizard people. Are they real? I don't know, but from reading the stuff that I've read, the truth is stranger than fiction, and there's something more to reality than meets the eye, even if it's a perceived thing. Like, even if we believe that there's something more to reality, like that in itself, the whole concept of why symbols exist, like why symbols are a thing. Why, if you take a picture of Baphomet and you put it in a church, people will scream that it's satanic and that it's the devil. Like, that combination of symbols together extracts a reaction from people through just the use of those things together. You could put Daffy Duck's head on Mickey Mouse's body and give it, whatever. You could put Nick Cage's face on it and nobody will bat. Like, oh, that's funny. But mix certain symbols together and it drives people insane. Like, it drives them mad. And that just, that rings true to like the whole concept of archetypes and these symbols that resonate with people's souls. And I mean, that's also an interesting theory to talk about, right? So again, I still, the more I look into it, the more I don't know. And I'm not the only one to say that. Like, I've read actual alchemists that were like, yo, if you study the occult, the more you look at it, the more it starts to morph into something else, and you don't know what you're looking at, right? You thought you grasped it at the beginning, and by the time you're done with it, it's something completely different. And I can attest to that. I've gone down some rabbit holes, and I'm like, yo, what the did I just read? What was that? Like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the biggest dog dick? What do you mean, bro? Like, what? How do you even know? Like, what do you tell people, bro? What do you tell people that you're doing? Like, yo, it's like,
Hey, don't go there. Don't go there.
Yeah. So again, it's interesting. There's plenty to dig at, and the homunculus is just one aspect of alchemy. There are various types of things. I mean, and you have multiple figures in alchemy. And you mentioned something at the beginning about like homunculus being like a sort of cryptid. Well,
yeah.
According to Paracelsus, these Paracelsian monsters, if you made a homunculus and you let it grow into old age, so if you let it grow up, so a homunculus is born as not a little baby, a miniature man, but it does grow up. And if you let it grow up into old age, it becomes a mythological creature. It becomes a dwarf, gnome, giant. It becomes something spectacular. And then there's also another, I forgot her name, but there's a dissertation on it where she goes hard in the paint because, Goethe and all these guys that were writing about, Faust and Wagner and all these guys making homunculus. Well, they get into the aspect of homunculus being like a sort of subliminal, or not subliminal, but a liminal species of creature. And what that means is, since it came from magic, it came from alchemy, which is the great work, it exists between reality and non-reality. So it exists in this like matrix area where it's able to interact with two realities at once, like something really bizarre. So the homunculus takes on like this cryptic aspect of it. It was like, yo, what if Bigfoot is just like some escaped homunculus, like from some alchemical lab? Like, what, like, you know, there's manuals on how to create like the, you know, like what they call irrational animals, so chimeras. And these, if again, if we keep the homunculus concept, if these chimeras are made, right, and they're vessels for entities, like, does that explain like Dogman or like Mothman or like something else that we don't really know what it is, and it's always androgynous, like kind of, it's got like some, right, like it's androgynous, so it has like some sort of humanoid figure to it, right? And then you got the whole concept of like in the occult, where there's occultists that are opening up portals from other dimensions, from universe B or the upside down, or whatever you want to refer to it as. And these things are able to crawl in through those portals and exist in our reality. So like the occult bleeds into like the paranormal and all these different places, and alchemy. And like, that's what I love about it. 'Cause you can literally go anywhere and everywhere with it. Like there's no, sky's the limit, and space is fake and gay.
Reminds me of CERN, you know?
Yeah.
Ceremonies and I think I played on a podcast previously. And how do you explain that? Like, how do you explain that at all? Just watch it.
The concept of the concept. Just think about it for a second. By the way, I read in a grimoire, I think it's, I forgot which one it was. But it talks about the magnet being the choice of stone for magicians. At CERN, there's a large array of magnets. And if you think about the concept of this is what they're telling us, the exoteric, that they're clashing atoms together. This is what they're telling us. Like, think about that. They're clashing atoms together to see what happens. Like that in itself, right? If you believe in it, because some people are like, oh, it's all fake. They're not really doing all that. They're just telling you that, right? There's that crowd too, where everything is just a psyop and it's all fake and gay. But if you take that, that aside, you take that concept and you really think about like, what in the world you're doing alchemy. You're manipulating matter to try and achieve a change, to try and achieve something. That's what the alchemists were doing. They were manipulating matter to transcend reality. And that's what the magnum opus essentially was. Once the magnum opus happened, the reaction from that, the light reaction from that magnum opus would transform your DNA, and you were able to step outside of reality. And that's why all the alchemists that achieved the magnum opus, they all just went missing. They just peaced out. And then they were seen hundreds of years later, under the same name, same face. And then you have the whole like the celebrities being immortal. I don't know if you've seen those, where they show like a picture of somebody in history that looks like Keanu Reeves or Nick Cage or whoever it is. It's like
time travelers.
because the homunculus also served as a vessel for the consciousness of the magician. So it could be used as a sort of a thing for immortality. So what if you could, right? It's like an organic USB drive where you make this thing and then you download your consciousness into it, and then boom, you grow back up. Right, it's magical. So give it 6 months, and boom, you're rejuvenated, brand new body, altered carbon style. Right, got a new sleeve, ready to go. Well, I mean, that's also part of it too, where it was a vessel for consciousness of the practitioner or the creator, and that would explain why a lot of these alchemists were immortal, not because they achieved the elixir of life. Well, the elixir of life might have been the homunculus. Might have been, right? That might have been the real pursuit that they were after. Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, why create an elixir of life when you can create a little entity that will quite literally help you find treasure, divinate for you, and do everything else and more? Just go after that. You know what I'm saying? The Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of life were byproducts of people trying to achieve the homunculus.
Right.
You know?
I think why CRISPR gets kind of pulled into the homunculus is because there is that, I think they've made an embryo right out of nowhere, and that's kind of biogenesis is kind of one of the terms that they mentioned for Homunculus. But one of the reasons people go so hard in the paint and, validate this and make this their life purpose is because they think that it's going to advance humans and save people. Because, right, they do this and come up with an organ for the organ donors that matches them, and so that they can transfer them. And so that's their just cause scientifically of making it, right? I mean, it's crazy. Didn't they make researching for this podcast and looking at the CRISPR? Like, I heard whether they made like some Chinese ladies that were immune to HIV or something
What?
because of CRISPR. Yeah.
Well,
I
no,
mean,
in 2018, there was a scientist who faced some backlash because he created the first ever genetically edited babies to not be affected by HIV, to just be resistant to it. And he was condemned by it because they were just saying, obviously they brought in the whole ethical concerns as far as safety. But yeah, he apparently successfully made the first ever e- genetically edited babies who were resistant to HIV, which is
Why not
pretty
cancer or
crazy,
something more useful?
right?
Why
And so
HIV and AIDS?
yeah, so that's where the next thing is going. They're trying to go to see if they can do that for cancer patients, right? Or just to create that. But then obviously what's stepping in on the other end, from what I was reading, big pharma, obviously. There's no money in the cure. The money's in the medicine, right? So that's where they're kind of facing some issues. And that's why, the concerns with CRISPR is that I do believe that the people who came up with this have good intentions with it and say, we can heal people with it. It's like stem cell, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think stem cells great for people. Like I think if you blew up your arm fighting a war for us, why shouldn't you go get a arm doing stem cell, right? Or like CRISPR, why shouldn't we find a way to cure people's diseases or ailments? Because it's a breakthrough in science, but now you get all these bigger heads coming in. It's like, wait, you can't do that because it's the fear that people are going to be stronger than the people that's trying to keep us dangled at the bottom, right? So, but like you said, why not cancer? And there are, from what I've read, that people want to do things where they can help cure cancer or people resistant to like leukemia and things like that. But for some reason, they're always met with like obstacles, and it was never elaborated on what obstacles are. And people speculate, well, because big pharma is coming in saying, no, you can't do that.
It's kind of
You know
hard to
what's funny?
overcome 2 shots to the back of the head, right?
Yeah, right.
Their names are Lulu and Nana.
It's hard to bounce
First
back from
Chinese.
that one, bro.
First
Yeah, like,
Chinese,
how are you gonna CRISPR your way out of that one?
first Chinese edited babies. Lulu
I've never
and
heard.
Nana.
I've never heard of that. So did they grow up or what? What's going on? Like,
Yeah, let's see how old they
Yeah,
are. I mean, I'll look
what?
it up, but
they were in
hold up.
2018,
Look it
so
up, bro. But let me just say
What's the name of it?
priorities, right? Lulu and Nana. Let me send this
the
over.
scientist here, I have
Edited
his,
Chinese CRISPR babies, Lulu and Nana. Type that in. HIV was the first thing they did. So priorities, right? They needed to make. Hey, Austin Powers, fool me and you, bro. That's just real. It's out there. There is a Dr. Evil.
Bro, what? This is wild, bro. What? And there's like, what happened to Lulu and Nana CRISPR babies? He's HIV resistant, are now toddlers and both still alive at the moment. This is December 10th, 2022. That's crazy.
yeah, they're only
They're gonna
5
live
years old,
forever.
really.
They're gonna live forever, bro.
They're only 5 years old,
Oh,
and
they're homunculus, dog.
exactly.
Yo,
That's why I was trying to see like if maybe that the CRISPR, because you were speaking about homunculus. I was like, maybe this
I don't
could
know
be
enough
tied into-
about CRISPR.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and
But
I don't
in
know
a
if you can
sense-
get like a designer homunculus with like blue eyes or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think the more funnier or like crazier topics than that is like with CRISPR, like if say China's like, oh, we can make super soldiers and just make these strong ass babies and breed them to what, destroy America or whatever. And that's just the other things I was reading, people just speculating like, this could fall in the wrong hands and they can weaponize genetics. And it's a further thought process, like how are you going to weaponize genetics? And is this just another pathway to kind of throw under the rug some secret human experiments by showing us like, no, we made HIV resistant babies, but behind the scenes we're conducting some experiments and we're trying to put a third arm on someone, you know?
So
What's crazy? Go ahead, man.
I'm trying to find it here. So this
What's crazy while you're looking for that is, I mean, now you bring up the debate of, there are the people that are against having people have prosthetic limbs that are, biomechanical, and it gives you an edge, obviously, because you're enhanced. But now imagine having like a HIV resistant immune system. You know what I mean?
Bro, that's such a weird thing to like, weird flex, bro. But okay, like, yo,
Yeah, right.
HIV resistant, son. It's like, yo, it was like,
Let's get it on.
what's your superpower? I can grow my nails really long. So I'm trying to find here from Crowley's Moonchild, when he talks about Superman, because essentially you're talking about super soldiers. Well, this super soldiers was an actual thing. And like the humanity was a real thing by the Soviets. They were trying to create that. They said that Hitler was also trying to create. And the reason I bring this up is because it's part of the homunculus, and also because I just finished watching, I think it's called Yeti Massacre, this documentary on HBO about the Dyatlov Pass incident, and where they said that it was actually a killer Yeti that killed these people, these hikers, whatever. And they talk about and I talked about in the Nephilim Chimera episode that I did a little bit ago, where there was a certain scientist who was injecting monkey sperm into women without their consent, because they were trying to create this half human hybrid thing for a super soldier. And if you think of like Captain America, Superman is more like an extraterrestrial, but like Captain America, that concept of like super soldier and like his enemies and the state of the Union, I guess, when that came out, right? And the idea of like, if you follow like Grant Morrison and like how comic books are kind of sort of sigils, like hyper sigils, and like the Invisibles when he was making his series, and when he was what I mentioned at the beginning, when he was changing his character in the story, the things that he was doing to his character in the stories was happening to him in real life. So if his character got sick in the story in the comic book, he would get sick too. So there's like this whole thing.
It's just crazy.
Crowley talks about Superman, and if you notice, the word Superman has the word sperm in it, so you can extract the word sperm from Superman. And there's something about the
S,
Sperm
bro.
Man from now on. Sperm
The
Man.
the S ain't an S, brother. The S ain't an S.
Exactly. So I found it here. It says
the hair that ain't gel, brother.
So he says, I may conclude this little sketch by saying that the idea has been almost universal in one form or another. The wish has always been, and this is again a Thelemic thought, where they believed that they could bring forth a Messiah, right? He called him the child of thy bowels, right? So, and also from abnormal means. So he goes, has always been for a Messiah or Superman, and the method some attempt to produce man by artificial or at least abnormal means. And this is from his story Moonchild, which is a book that Crowley wrote in 1917, I believe it was. And it's a story essentially about, again, the Crowleyan homunculus, which is another homunculus, where it was his recipe on how to create a homunculus. And essentially in this story, that has a lot of occult realities in it, and a lot of occult doctrines that are true things in the occult world, but it's mixed in with a story, which that's also part of like this magical process, taking something fictional and putting real life things in it, right? Like based on true events or whatever. And so in this story, it's about a war between two lodges over like this unborn child, and essentially trying to birth an ethereal being into existence through these ceremonies and rituals. So a homunculus essentially. And some say that this was the book that inspired Jack Parsons to do his Babylon working ritual later on in 1946, which some say opened up a rift in space and time, because they never closed this portal that, right, the alien grays came through, which are also fake and gay. But this idea that, again, a rocket scientist took this story, he also writes about it in Magic and Theory and Practice as well. That was, I think, 1912 or 13, somewhere around there. But he's writing about, right, having these ethereal beings, these entities outside of space and time, having a vessel for them to fall into. So Crowley had his own formula on how to create a homunculus, and it changed. So you see an evolution of the homunculus concept from the very beginning, where it's a more metaphysical, philosophical thing, and then like, okay, it might be symbolic, and then it's like, oh no, maybe you can make a little man in a vessel, right, a flask, and then it kind of fades away again and kind of becomes like, oh, it's, and the way that they put it in this particular story, because I'm currently writing a book on homunculus, so I'm writing the chapter on the Moonchild right now, and he says here, right, so he says, thus he will have a perfectly normal child, which is also a homunculus in the medieval sense of the word. So the person will grow up to be normal, but it's going to have the essence or the soul of this ethereal being. So everything aside that we've talked about, because this is a question that I get a lot, is like, are there homunculus within society now? And I would boil down, now check this out, I would boil down that a homunculus, and we know that elite families do this, could be as simple as a royal family planning the birth date of said son or said heir, right? That would be enough, because again, you're aligning, right? So you have a talismanic aspect to it. So the stars are aligned a certain type of way. You're going to have a certain rising moon and astrology and all these different things. You're going to invoke the whatever planet this month, and Mercury's and Gatorade and Swiss cheese and all this other stuff, whatever it is. So they're taking and essentially applying an outside force to the birth of this person. Therefore, that would, again, I would consider that a homunculus, as simple as that. And again, even if it's not a super magical, supernatural, woo-woo type of thing, mind you, it's what the practitioner, what the magician believes at the time. Therefore, it comes true. It is something true. And we know that a lot of celebrities, like I've watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians for research purposes, and they boast about like, oh, he's going to be a Leo, or he's going to be a so-and-so. Like, they know about this stuff, right? There's a reason why they do C-sections. There's a reason why they do surrogate births. So apply all those Paracelsian homunculus concepts. And what's a surrogate? Well, that's a hermetically sealed vessel that's carrying, the seed of XY. You know what I'm saying? Again, I'm not saying that all babies are homunculus, but apply these concepts, right? Think outside the box. Think occultish. Think magically. And these people are in power for a reason, right? They're in power because, they've done messed up things. They've played the system to their benefit. And there's a reason why all the Habsburgs, they were all inbred, right? They had like deformities and all this stuff. Allegedly, the little girl that traced back the lineage of all the presidents back to like one guy, I think it was like the guy with the Magna Carta or something like that. So there's something there. It's like there's something weird going on. If it's alchemical or not, we don't really know, but we know that, right? New Atlantis, Francis Bacon, John Dee, the 1611 version of the Bible. There's something weird alchemical going on there. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really not adding up, but if asking, you shall receive. So if you start digging down those rabbit holes, you're going to find some stuff, and you might not like what you find. So,
right. Well, I mean, speaking of, like you said, Superman, and just trying to tie that in and kind of make it, have there ever been any movies you've seen and it was just in your face, like, holy shit, that's a homunculus, because just thinking about it now, I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie Hellboy. Remember there was a character named Roger the Homunculus?
Homunculus confirmed. Eat a bag of dog dicks. Homunculus confirmed. Certified homunculus. Good God.
That's
a
you.
Homunculus.
That's me when I'm watching. I'm like, oh my God.
Right, like in Hellboy, there was the character Roger the Homunculus, and he actually played a pretty significant role and he was created by a group of alchemists in the World War II. So now you talking about alchemy and everything, it kind of put everything together for me on his creation. But like I said, were there any movies like Jarrell Jarezi, he brought up the Powerpuff Girls to me. I was like, holy shit, that is in a sense exactly what you guys are talking about as far as homunculus alchemy, just putting something together. But yeah, like I just want to know if there's any movies you would point out and say, hey, watch this movie and tell me what you think, because this is exactly what we're talking about.
bro.
Yeah, just before you start, bro, when we had Paranoid American on, we talked about Superman.
Don't talk to me
you know
about
what I
that guy,
mean?
bro. Just kidding. I love Thomas.
I'll edit that one out. I'll edit that one out. But Superman, bro, he's the super OP, right? Like he's the strongest one.
He's sperm man.
Sperm.
Super sperm man. He is his only weakness is
Kryptonite.
and magic. So
Mhm.
even he respects the alchemy and the, you know what I mean, magic.
He knows.
So
He knows what's good.
interesting to note. He knows what's good.
The more you f- around, the more you find out. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
bro, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but Pokemon the movie 2000, dude, Mewtwo.
Oh,
Mewtwo,
yes.
bro, it's been in our face
Yeah.
this whole time, son. Like
Shit.
Mewtwo, what? It's like an offspring of Mew. Like, oh my, he's in a
That's
vessel. Like from the very beginning, like yo, like that's
Bro, even the song, I want to be the very best. So he's just willing to go as
to
far.
do whatever, bro. To do it. So as far as movies, I can't really think. You put me on the spot right now. I can't really think, but like something like that, as simple as that, where you don't really think anything of it, but if you think of like the concept of like Pokemon and how it relates to like elementals and like these creatures and like it's kind of really
Right.
like it gets you can twist it and be occultic, and trust me, I've tried to find like the occult aspect of Pokemon. I haven't really been able to find one, but even like Dragon Ball Z, that's kind of weird too, right? It's like aliens and like
Mhm.
other dimensions existing after you're dead. You have
Yeah.
like the Dragon Balls to summon this entity that's gonna like grant wishes for you, like all this craziness. They have like
Androids.
Yeah, they have like a time capsule that's like, you know, however many years passing that. It's like it's crazy. Like so that's pretty occultic too. But as far as like homunculus right in your face, I can't really think. If I think of one, I'll hit you up. But like
No worries.
any movie that really is they grow somebody in a lab, bro. And you got to really expand your mind when it comes to like this concept, because once you can tell somebody like, oh, cloning, and they won't think of like alchemy. You know, they won't
Right.
think of like, oh, that's alchemical. It's like, oh, genetic cloning. Oh, okay, yeah. They're just making another version of you, like Austin Powers and, you know, what's that dude's name? Mini Me or whatever. The
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was gonna bring that up.
Vern
the,
Troyer.
the pink.
Oh
Jeez.
shit, bro! No, I was gonna talk about like Wee Man, but no, Mini Me is a little clone kind of homunculus.
What's it
You know,
called?
you said
Austin Powers.
you said earlier Philosopher's Stone. That's also like Harry Potter. So I'm now wondering if that's a relation, because Harry Potter, the Sorcerer's Stone is a U.S. version, but back in like Europe, it's the Philosopher's Stone. And when you brought that, I was like, hey, it. Then I remember there's a homunculus charm in Harry Potter, but it wasn't like a big thing. So
It makes you think where they get those concepts from, and they take them from
I did
Exactly.
not
these
know that. That's
from these
fucking crazy,
occult
man.
powers. Like they
yeah,
and like what'd you say, Lulu and Nana? It just makes me think of like Inanna and like, you know, some other goddess. Like, you know, they
right.
Mhm.
you got to understand that the word grammar comes from grimoire, and grimoire is a
Mhm.
book of spells. So like that's etymology. So they encode these things in words, because and even when you say like the days of the week, you know, Monday, Moonday,
Good morning.
Tuesday, yeah, Wednesday, Woden, you know, Thursday, Thursday, like you're invoking gods essentially that
Right.
were gods to pagans at once upon a time, but yet their names still exist. And shout out to my boy Slick Dissident. There's one thing that he said one time that stood out to me, where it's like he said there are a lot of gods that are hidden within our language. And when he said that, like that just stood out to me, because like if you take that concept and you back out, you go, not only are there gods, but there's so much more encoded in our words that we use every day that we don't know that we're using, that came from, you know, some freaking occultists once upon a time. Like, you know, abracadabra was made by some guy, and then you take that, Crowley used that, abrahadabra, and he said that was like the word of like a new aeon or something or other like that. But
Mhm.
you know, there's a lot of things in our language that etymology is very interesting as well. And it just makes me think of like Falconelli, where he's talking about Anyways, you have to read Falconelli, but he goes on a whole bunch of things of like etymology and words.
Just to talk about words or spells and grimoires and grammar, that's crazy. And I think we talked about too, like I was kind of getting scared going into like, when I was going into John D. Crowley.
Don't be a bro.
I got the mask on, you got your face on. Come on, bro. Don't call me out. Hey, if it's not a medical condition, it's a spiritual condition.
It's all good, bro. Listen, dude, it's an alchemical process. What works for you works for you,
What I was gonna say is, going into that stuff, you said not to worry about it because it is, etymology is important. It's how you say things, right? Like you have to kind of say it in a different tone. Some parts of the word has to be emphasized. And it's crazy because we talk about, siphoning spirit into false gods, and these gods are kind of like embedded in our language. Let's talk about Christians, right? And let's get up the rabbit hole. Let's go to the shallow and let's kind of wrap this up. Homunculus is kind of draped into a bunch of layers, and you kind of really need to go deep in order to see different layers of it. But it does get, Christianity kind of comes out and certain things are kind of barred and you can't go into it. But I feel like Christianity is one of those things where certain things are off limits and off reach. And so Jesus isn't even the name, right? Jesus, Yeshua translates into English Joshua. So people are saying accept Jesus, on Sundays, like pouring out in Jesus' name. You know what I mean? Like, who are you saying that to? Like, you're siphoning energy into like a Mickey Mouse, like balloon animal spirit, right?
Well,
So
yeah. It's like
it's pretty nuts if you think about it, I feel.
And that's why there's only 44,000 denominations of Christianity. I mean, I'm sure they got their stuff together, but the way I see it, bro, like, that to me is, and that's why I don't subscribe to organized religion. I believe in Jesus Christ and that he is the Lord and Savior, but the intricacies of it, I think that's part of like this divide and conquer aspect. And let's take that aside. There is a God. Even if he is like,
right,
this old man sitting on a throne with a white beard, like whatever, Gandalf, whatever, like that's stuff that those are images that we've been brainwashed with, right? Like all that aside, there's a source, there is something, there is an architect, there is a divine alchemist, whatever you want to refer to him as, there is something at the core of it all. This intelligence is at the core of it all. That's light. And now at the end of the day, like this whole esoteric Christianity, which is what a lot of these, like the Rosicrucians, like it's supposed to be some sort of esoteric mystical Christianity, like it's supposed to be, more and then they take it and it always goes back to like, yo, you are a God, like you are this entity that can create your own reality. And it's like, do I agree with that? I don't agree. I think that we can be close to God. I think that it's like the reason that they don't have the Book of Enoch in the canon is because, and this is why I'm here, bro. I'm here because of religion. Like I was going to church like 4 days a week. I was playing guitar. I was doing all that stuff. And when I started to ask the hard questions, like, yo, what's up with the Gospel of Judas, my guy? And they're like, yo, don't read that stuff. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls, Nag Hammadi, don't read none of that. The Old Testament, don't even read that stuff. I go, yo, but it's part of the canon. It's like, no. It's like, yo, what's the Book of Enoch? And then when you realize that in the Book of Enoch, like 3 Enoch chapter 3 verse 33 talks about like a gate at the North Pole where things come in and out of, and then the fact that at the end of the whole thing with Enoch, he becomes the lesser Yahweh or the little Yahweh, and he sits at the throne, like next to the throne of God. I think that's where we can get to. But Enoch got there and was able to turn into Metatron at the end of it all after he learned all the secrets. From who? From the Watchers. And who were the Watchers watching? They were watching the divine alchemists that work, create, and peel apart reality itself. And he learned those secrets from the Watchers. And that's why if you trace the origins of alchemy back to the beginning, it comes from the Nephilim. It comes from the Watchers that came down and taught the secrets to the daughters of men. So we have a biblical connection to alchemy, and then Noah's line. And I believe Noah was one of the greatest alchemists of all time, and his lineage and how that connects to Hermes and Hermes Trismegistus and the secrets of alchemy and all these different things. There were practicing alchemists back then. So I think they leave all that stuff out because it gets like this, bro. The Bible is super interesting. Even if, let's say, even if it's a story, it's a fictional thing. Let's say, like, it's super interesting when you start to read between the lines. Like, yo, why were these guys all living for such a long time? Oh, maybe they had the Philosopher's Stone, right? It's like, well, maybe they had the secrets. Like, these dudes were, they were doing things, and then you have the aspect of like, oh, why do alchemists love the Book of Genesis so much? It's like, well, there's stuff in there, maybe in the original 1611 King James version of the Bible that we're not gonna have because it's not a first edition, but maybe they did encode things into the Bible, and they put secret ciphers and hidden messages within. Who knows? Like, the idea of having hidden ciphers in the text, like the text itself, and then hidden alchemical ciphers within the actual story of the Bible. It's layered upon layers upon layers, bro. And that's why I don't think we're ever going to figure it out. But they do occult a lot of like the woo-woo aspects. And if on Sunday, a church talked about alchemy in the Bible and the Nephilim and Saint Christopher being a freaking giant dog-headed saint or whatever, like, I'd probably tune in a little bit more, you know what I'm saying? But they take that away on purpose. Do what?
Joel Osteen doing that?
Yeah, no.
Oh my god.
I go.
So
hey man,
yeah,
just to leave a bookmark because this still goes deep.
Yeah.
I started thinking. I went in thinking maybe Jesus was a homunculus, but now I'm leaving thinking Noah, right? He brought 2 of each animal. And everything else died in the flood. So that means all the years of evolution creating different beings should be wiped out. So now why do we have all these hybrid animals? And maybe Noah was around, you know what I'm saying?
What's a boat, bro? It's a vessel. And what do they use in alchemy? They use vessels in alchemy. So again, I mean,
yeah.
I've done entire episodes on that. Episode 173 is the tip of the iceberg, but again, I'm as confused as you are, bro. I don't know anything. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything, and I'm here to have a good time and have conversations like these and see what happens.
Hey, bro, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I go down a lot of rabbit holes. 10-hour video research. I go run, listen to crazy books. Dude, you're one of the best doing it in this field. You're super informative. You're entertaining the way you cross and connect things. So shout out to you for this. Yeah, again, I wear the mask for spiritual protection. You do it and you're in the rabbit hole 24/7. I feel, well, not really, but you know what I mean? Like for me and Jermaine, like we'll tell you, like, I think we fucked up committing to making October kind of rabbit holy because, dude, I'm losing my mind, bro, and I can't wait to get out of this. Talk about sports, talk about fighting, Spider-Man.
It gets heavy, man. It gets heavy because you're just sitting there thinking about it too much, and now you can't look at things normally anymore. Yeah. So it gets...
This one, we had to open this one up, man, and you are the expert, so why not have you on to explain this and navigate us?
I appreciate
you know what I mean?
that. As I'm just I always tell people, like, when you ask me at the beginning, it's like I am super boring when, like, you look at me on paper, but like I said, I'm just a regular guy who is here to just do research, man. I take inspiration from other people who, came before me, and I'm carrying the torch, and hopefully, I don't know, we'll see what happens. It's growing a lot bigger than I thought it would ever get. So
yeah,
see what happens.
That's why I enjoy actually having you on here and actually being a part of it, listening, because
we had you on 3 times, bro.
I know. I mean, it's not that I don't have anything to say. It's because when I have something to say, you're ready to bring it. I was like, okay, here we go. So I'm caught up listening, and it's easy to listen to you because you're not more of like in your face. You actually do say like, hey, I don't even know if I'm right. Go research it. Make your own, your own theories. But this is what you know, and that's why what you're doing. Actually, I think it what you're doing actually helps open up the conversation very well for people who aren't aware of what this is or how to get into it. And you're just like you're so knowledgeable in an open book. So thank you, man, for opening my eyes more into the homunculi and bringing me more drawn into it. And like I said, I learn more every time I get on this with you.
Well, real quick, bro.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
So, and like I said, let me get you guys' address so I can send you some copies of the
Oh, hell yeah.
Homunculus owner's manual
For sure.
by that
that'd be
one
dope.
guy, Paranoid American. Shout out to him. So if you want to learn the
Yeah, he was
history and
cool.
how to take care of your homunculus, pick this up because you're gonna learn and you're gonna be able to put that little guy in control. So again, no homunculus guaranteed,
dope.
but yeah, send me you guys' address. I'll shoot you some copies over, and I appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun as always, and hopefully I didn't ramble on too much. So
Not at
appreciate
all,
you.
man.
Oh,
Not at
no,
all.
bro. So we wanted to wrap up with a quick answer type of questionnaire for you called Homunculus or Not. Let me play a Homunculus or Not. I need one of those
The
soundboards.
soundboards, man.
So we're gonna name some characters or some characters, and you say, you know what I mean, just off top if they're homunculus or homunculi or
Ooh.
not.
Okay.
I'll go first.
All right.
Are you familiar with Rick and Morty?
Yes,
Fucking Mr. Meeseeks, bro. What do you think?
homunculus. Bro.
Oh yeah. Oh, I fucking knew it. Got him, bro.
Yeah, definitely, bro.
All right, that's mine.
You ever watch Adventure Time?
Yeah.
Do you remember that one episode where it was Earl of Lemon Grab?
No, it doesn't ring a bell. I wasn't heavy
Okay.
into it. Let me look him up though. Earl.
Okay. Of Lemon Grab. He was created
Oh,
by
this
Princess
guy.
Bubblegum. Yeah. So
Yeah. So, what's his origin story? Because he looks like a homunculus, bro.
well, as far as I know, he was created by Princess Bubblegum, and he just has this fucked up, appearance. And so for me, because created by Princess Bubblegum, and there's no other, I think he is a homunculus.
Yeah, bro. He first appeared too young. He is a high-strung, overzealous, obnoxious, paranoid, stubborn ruler of earldom. Yeah, bro. He was created absolutely homunculus. And this reminds me of, isn't there some other guy? Oh, is it Mr. Isn't there some other creature in Rick and Morty that's like really weird too? Not Meeseeks, but something else that kind of looks like this lemon guy. Anyways, whatever.
Or
Is
the
it the pickle?
Goombas.
No, not the pickle. But anyways, if I think of it, I'll send it to you guys. But
No worries.
yeah, definitely, bro. And think about the concept of a character. They're all created by somebody. So again, they're all vessels, and actors are all vessels in there. So
What about? Well, someone wanted to ask from the crew. Indian in the Cupboard.
Oh, classic movie though.
is that the one where the
He has these toys, and he's this magical cupboard, and he puts
Yeah.
a toy in, and he turns
Ooh.
a key, and they all come to life.
Yeah, like a Toy Story type of thing.
Yeah.
So that would fall under a homunculus, where it would be a talisman. So an
okay.
amulet, and so it's fetishism, where it's the dwelling place of a spirit. So a talisman is magical, and an amulet, it houses a spirit or entity. So think of like a genie in the bottle. The genie is the amulet. The jinn or the genie
Shit.
is the entity. So if you follow the Knights Templar, Baphomet, and the head of
Yeah.
John the Baptist, they were invoking entities into the head, and it was prophesizing to them. And that also goes back to ancient Mesopotamia with they were also practicing the same thing, animating statues and stuff like that to divinate towards them. So homunculus confirmed. Hit the button. Hold up.
Homunculus
got one more?
confirmed.
There you go.
I'm trying to think.
Oh, I got one. I got
Okay,
two
go for
actually.
it.
My last
Go
two,
ahead.
bro. Last two. Jurassic Park dinosaurs.
Why? Because they're clones.
Well, they came out of Well, kind of, but they were kind of, mixed because they weren't really dinosaurs.
Weren't they clones though?
they took
Chimeras,
they
maybe.
took DNA from frogs, But no, the important thing to note is life finds a way, and they were all females, but somehow they reproduced.
I don't know, bro. I'm gonna
Wait, really?
call no homunculus on that one, bro.
Okay, damn it.
Dinosaurs are fake and gay.
Last one, Majin Buu.
I don't remember how he was created. Didn't he come from like the original Boo and like came out of like a goo or something like that?
The fat one came from like an egg.
Oh,
they
that's
had
super alchemical, bro.
They had to like make a spell, bro.
Oh, dude, yeah, that's
Bro,
yes.
look it up, bro. Majin Vegeta, he also lost his because he had this mark on his head, so it goes back to like.
Well, so the shirt that I bought
Crazy.
was in the Full Metal Alchemist, the Nina and the dog. You're gonna get to it, but they're doing the fusion from the. You'll get the reference when you watch Full Metal Alchemist, but yeah, that's the shirt that I got in the mail. Shows.
What about Gollum from Lord of the Rings? He's got those big hands and big old head, right?
What wasn't he transformed? Like he was greedy, right? And he was like a hobbit at first,
Right.
and he got so he was transmutated. So I wouldn't consider him a homunculus because he like a force took over him and he was deformed after the fact because of the ring, right? He wanted the ring. He was like really greedy. No, no homunculus, bro.
I mean, that's all I could think of, really. I mean, I always thought Gollum and Smeagol were the same, right? I mean,
Majin Buu was a genie-like magical life form awoken by an evil warlock, BBD, that terrorized galaxies by destroying.
There's a Bobbity.
Whatever.
There's a
the little green guy, yeah. That
like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo.
Yeah, that terrorized galaxies by destroying entire planets millions of years before the events of the Dragon Ball take place. He was temporarily sealed away and brought to Earth. However, BBD was killed and Boo remained hidden. Yikes, that's crazy. Damn, that brings back memories, man.
What did Dobby from Harry Potter be on? Because he was serving, right? The Lucius Malfoy, wasn't he?
That's
he
the
looked
little
like a
the little
homunculus.
eared guy, like the little
like that little elf, the house elf.
Wearing the sack and.
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah.
Depends on how he was born. So Dobby here was a male house elf, so he's already an elf. Who his masters were dark wizards. So how was he created? I don't know.
Right. There was really no backstory in that, but I'm just going with the big head, big hands.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I wouldn't call him a homunculus. He's a little elf. He's already a mythical creature.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah, the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, actually, I need to watch Harry Potter. There's a lot of occultic, alchemical stuff
bro.
in that.
It's good stuff, man.
Same here.
I'll have to rewatch
Same here. Hell yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. We won't keep you long. Is there anything you want to plug that's coming out? Obviously, got the book coming out.
Yeah, I won't be out for a minute though, bro. I'm still working my way through it, but you can find all my stuff tjojp.com. You can get the Homunculus Owners Manual. You can get my comic book, The Chosen Juan versus the Saturnian Cube. We got another one coming out soon with Sam Tripoli, Alex Stein, a whole bunch of guys in it. I got an Occultist Monday journal that I publish. And yeah, TJOJP, YouTube, Juan Podcast on there. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Find my podcast anywhere. Really, just Google it.
Perhaps off October. All right, everyone. We'll be making our way out of the cave. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to continue and talk about occult stuff or sports, you can join our Discord. Link should be on our website. Make sure you guys check out safelight.com and our website at cave.com. Peace out, everyone. Juan, always a good time, man.
Appreciate you, man.
See you on the next one.
Peace out.